With a call to order. Rick, why don't you lead us tonight?
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Breckin. Sure, we appreciate it. All right, Katie, I think we got everybody here. Roll call, trustees, department heads, et cetera. For a motion and a second to approve the following minutes. First, 2024 committee of the whole, October 21st, 2024 village board, November 4th, 2024 village board, to file the July 9th, 2024 public safety committee, September 9th, 2024 board of public works, September 10th, 2024 public safety committee, October 7th, 2024 finance and personnel, October 9th, 2024 architectural review board meeting minutes as presented.
Motion to approve.
And now second.
That's okay, no problem. Motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes at this point? Corrections, changes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion is carried. All right, we come to that favorite part of our meeting where public can speak if they wish. Have a nice year here tonight. Anything you wish to say? Anyone else who wishes to speak on an agenda or a non-agenda item? All right, well, thank you very much. We'll move to business presented by the president. All the businesses. To number 6, resolution, ordinances, action items, resolution designing and designating public depositories. Jesse Paul.
I'll about lead off here with a quick explanation. The village board must authorize by resolution the banks where the village is in fact able to conduct its banking business. The resolution has been updated and is presented for board consideration this evening. That said, the finance department, Director Studahar in particular, has reached out to Bank 59 to work on an agreement to collect property taxes and utility payments on behalf of the village, thus lessening the administrative traffic here at Village Hall. It does require opening accounts at Bank 59. Additionally, the Bank 59 collection point provides another option for taxpayers. We have our regular business hours of 8 to 4:30 throughout the work week. Bank 59 obviously would offer that Saturday morning in accord with their normal banking hours, as well as the fact that Horicon Bank and Port Washington State Bank currently collect property tax and utility payments. That said, Director Studahar is here to answer any specifics to this, but this is really in essence a housekeeping type of resolution, as it is required to authorize the village to conduct banking at specific facilities.
Very good, Paul. Anything to add on?
Questions? Anyone?
Okay, very good. Given this is a resolution, well, this board will offer a motion in a second. We're going to keep the table for discussion.
I'll
make the motion.
second it.
I'm going to offer a motion in a second. Again, this is a housekeeping issue. We wish to keep our house nice and clean. So, any questions for Paul? Ian?
On the resolution, it states Cornerstone Community Bank in 3 areas that I can see, but they are not part.
I'll take that. I'm important. Happy, but yeah, we'll get that.
Okay.
We did update that last year.
Thank you. I was just curious why we were adding this.
Too much detail. Horicon is limiting basically to Horicon customers only for tax collections and some other limitations. So, in order to kind of help taxpayers pay, as Jesse said, Saturday mornings later in the day, when we're told is just another option for taxpayers to utilize. And over the years, Bank 59 has consistently reached out to me to provide services for the village. So I thought I'd reach out to them to see what we could come to for an arrangement. We're good.
Dave?
Just a comment, I think it's a great idea to add another bank, just so that the residents of the village have, a place that they can go, or it's convenient for them, so.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote to adopt the resolution. All in favor say aye. Opposed? And that motion carried. let's go to item B, report of Finance and Personnel Committee, denial of claim for George Mitchell and Camille Harris for accident that occurred on September 26, 2024.
Absolutely. Per adopted policy, any claim against the village greater than $2,500 must come through committee and ultimately village board for action. What we have here is a claim by these individuals as noted for damage that a automobile incurred as there was an incident where a fire truck was responding to a call. It was an emergency response for a vehicle fire at Home Depot. So the truck turned the corner and was trying to navigate a turn. This vehicle was illegally parked outside of delineated public spaces or parking spaces and too close to the corner. There was damage to the car with a broken tail light, and I believe the bumper was hit as well. That said, the claim is above the $2,500 administrative threshold. Through conversations with Civmec, not written correspondence, but verbal correspondence and review of the reports, Civmec did verbally recommend denial of the claim, primarily due to the fact that the car was illegally parked. And I think that is more of a on behalf of our insurance company, looking to protect the village from frivolous claims. If there are reasons to legitimate reasons for denial of a claim, in this case, the car being illegally parked, it makes sense to recommend denial. That said, the decision does lie with the board, whether to carry out the Finance Personnel Committee's recommendation or the contrary. That said, the Ozaukee County Sheriff's Department was involved with the reporting of the incident due to the fact it was a village fire truck involved. We did not want the village's police department and any sort of potential for conflict of interest. Therefore, we had Ozaukee respond and write up the report. And we have taken the statement from the insured, Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Harris as well. And so with all of that being said, the motion to deny the claim is forwarded from the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Very good. Given we're looking for a denial of the claim here, I'm not going to go to a immediate motion. I think perhaps we should just look at discussing this and then move forward to a motion after the executive. Do you have any concerns with this denial or payment of this claim? Right, Pat?
Yeah, I think we should do the right thing and pay the claim. It was our fire truck that hit their car. So we are in all respect responsible. However, the insured certainly has some responsibility in this, and that or the insured, the claimant, because they were illegally parked, I don't think we pay more than 50%. So we could even choose to pay 25%, make them 75% responsible for the loss. But I think we should pay something to the insured or to the claimant.
Good.
I have no comment.
Yeah.
No, other than I defer to Mary Pat. This is her area of expertise, so.
I agree with that, but I'm not in favor of paying 50%. I think 25 or 20.
So I think that, you know, when we look at this village, I have a problem from a village perspective of determining at our attorney here to maybe give us a little comment on perhaps should we send this over to Civmec, let them deal percentage of damage on that based on the insurance estimate.
Actually, Mike, if I may, I can speak to the first part of that. Civmec is only going, because of the amount of this particular claim, Civmec is reactionary to what the village says. So it is solely our decision in this particular case. If it is over $25,000, that's where Civmec will take that formal action. But I know the prior report was not clear on that, but that aspect of your question, President Delort, I can speak to. This decision here, because of the threshold, is with the village board solely. That second part of your question, that I would defer to Mike.
Yeah, I don't practice heavily in the personal injury line of work, but my guess is that's why CIVMIC is recommending denial because of the comparative feeling that the owner of this vehicle was more negligent. And generally speaking, in Wisconsin, if you're more negligent, if you're over 50% negligent, you don't recover. So my guess is that's where CIVMIC was coming from when they made the recommendation to you to recommend denial. Just so the board is aware, the recommendation of denial, what happens is should you vote to deny, that triggers a 6-month statute of limitations for this owner to file a lawsuit and try to pursue their claims. If they don't do that in the next 6 months, then their claim is forever barred. So that's what the denial, that's the legal ramification of the denial.
I guess my concern here, again, for the village is that, in fact, we did in fact hit this car. I understand that, but I think that, if our insurance company is recommending a denial of that, I would back denial. And knowing that it's not ended, I also, kind of when we were going over this with finance counsel, I did look at the overall error estimate was somewhere around $11,000. And book value, our just average book value is about $3,000, $4,000. So again, I'm not a dealer, and I'm not saying that this is correct either. Error on the side of CIVMIC. That's what we pay them to do. So that's the idea. So with that, I'll look for a motion to deny the claim, and we'll go with that.
We'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. I'll take this to vote. Denial of claim are George Mitchell and Camille Harris for the accident that occurred on September 26, 2024. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, show of hands. Aye. Three. Okay, so we're split at this point in time. Mike was suggesting we go to
The motion
motion failed.
failed.
Okay, so I guess we have our marching orders at this point in time, Jesse.
Certainly with a failed motion, a different motion can be made by an individual on the board that is outside of the recommendation coming from finance and personnel. If you wish to reconsider the motion on the denial, as I recall, that motion would have to be made by one of the 3 individuals who voted nay.
Right.
And I got my Robert's rules correct.
That's fair. On the successful side, someone from the successful side would have to move to reconsider, and the successful side would have been the nays who.
Okay.
So those are the 2 options for the village board right now. Anybody up here can make a different motion, or if you wish to reconsider that motion to deny, trustee Luft, trustee Fenton, or trustee Miller would have to vote, or excuse me, make the motion to deny.
I will choose to change my decision for 2 reasons. Number one, the value of the vehicle. We're not gonna pay $11,000 on a $3,000 to $5,000 vehicle. So that would be the first reason. The second reason would be, the fact that he's got his own insurance. He could go through his own insurance company.
So I think trustee Fenton you're moving to reconsider the prior vote. Is that fair?
Yes,
And then-
correct.
And then that would require a second, and then you'd vote on the motion to reconsider.
Yeah.
And then you, assuming that passes, you can bring the old motion back, re-vote on that. Does that make sense?
So right here, this is the motion
To
To
reconsider.
reconsider.
reconsider. Okay. So we have a motion to reconsider a second.
Okay, I just had a question. If we can second it, or does it have to be somebody that?
No, any member can second. But
We have a motion
it
and a
sounds
second
like
for reconsideration.
trustee.
All in favor say aye.
Okay, that brings the old motion back, which was the motion to deny the claim.
So we'll go, we'll give a motion and we'll look for a motion. For the accident that occurred in the 26th, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor of denial, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries. Very good. Let's go to the report of Public Works. We got a lot of work to do for Amber and Brecken tonight.
Yes, the Board of Public Works is keeping us quite busy. The first two items, while they are separate actions, they are related, and I will work on getting the presentation up on the board here. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Christina Master of Trilogy Consulting, worked on the sewer and water rate study with village staff. And I just want to say thank you, as always, your village staff for their hard work and their professionalism. They're great to work with and did a great job pulling together the information that we needed for this. I wanted to walk through the presentation we gave Board of Public Works last week. We had a lot of good discussion and questions with them. So when you're talking about a little bit larger rate increase, it's good to know the whys and wherefores behind all that. So I want to get into that a little bit when we have a presentation.
Yeah, I'm being I got my Robert's Rules of Order right. Now I'm being outsmarted by the laptop.
Here comes Jessica to the rescue. And thank you, Mike, for helping guide us through that. This is I appreciate that.
Better with Robert's rules than the laptop, for sure, me.
And then you have to go. And I believe you all have in front of you like a nice one-page handout that Brecken put together that really highlights the main points here. And, you know, a couple of things to mention about that is, one, your rates are lower than your neighbors. And will continue to be even with the proposed rate increases. That is, while the percentage rate increase for the water utility sounds high, the dollar impact of that is relatively minimal for your customers. And it's really being driven by a lot of capital improvements that both utilities need to do. And it's been a number of years since you've had a water rate or sewer rate increase, especially on the water side.
One more time, sorry.
You did really, really well with all the color.
Oh, thank you. I've been living and breathing this for a few months now.
Hey, there we go. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm gonna start tonight with what are the proposed rate increases in total? And then we'll get into some context for that in terms of impacts for your customers and how you compare with other communities. And then we'll get into a little bit about the financial status of each of the utilities and what's driving this. So if you want to go to the next slide. So the water utility last increased rates by 9.2% in 2018. So we're coming up on 7 years. And that overall rate increase that we're proposing for water is 48.6%. And then we'll talk about what that means in dollars. The sewer utility had a series of rate increases between 2017 and 2020 to cover some major improvements at the wastewater treatment plant. What we're proposing going forward is a little bit higher than inflationary increases, both to catch up from the past few years as well as gear up for the future. So on the next slide, in terms of what that means for your customers, the water bill, the sewer bill on an annual basis, and quarterly and monthly for your average residential customers, what we're showing there. Quarterly is bolded because that's how often they receive the bills. So you'd be going in total from about $207.89 per quarter up to about $247.87 per quarter. So that's about just under $40 per month increase in total, or $13.33. Sorry, just under 40 per quarter, $13.33 per month, and about 44% cents per day kind of an impact is what we're talking about there, mostly on the water side. The next one, just put some information in here on how you compare with other communities in the area. So your water bills, this is average annual water bill for a residential customer. Currently, you're quite low compared to other area communities. About $236 per year versus $344 for other area communities. With that proposed increase, you'd be a little bit above average for this peer group. And then if you look statewide, all Class A, B utilities with more than 4,000 customers, the current bill for those communities right now is about $383 per year. So you're quite low compared to that. And a lot of communities have been having some very large water rate increases. You can see a few of them up here. The average water rate increase approved by the Public Service Commission this year statewide was 44.78% average. So that's what's going on with the water. If you go to the sewer. Again, you're a little bit lower than average here, about $595 per year versus an average of $628 for peer communities in this area. Even with the proposed increase for next year, you'd be a little bit below that still. And I know that there have been a lot of increases going on with this group as well. It's a little harder to track down that information, but Cedarburg increased their rates by about 37% to cover engineering costs alone for improvements that are expected to run somewhere in the $80 to $100 million range or more. Jackson is undergoing a $37 million project with their wastewater treatment plant. That's also going to double their rates over the next few years. So that's kind of the context that we're dealing with right now. And then if you go to the next slide, this just shows the combined annual water and sewer bills for your customers. Currently below average. With these increases, you could be a little bit above compared to your peer communities, at least for now, until some of those other rate increases kick in. Then I want to talk a little bit about, I won't get into the whole rate setting process in great detail, but there's kind of 3 steps versus determining how much revenue you need to collect. Then we do a cost of service study where we take line by line and allocate everything out to the different functions that your utility serves so that we can allocate that out to customers based on how they use your system. And then the 3rd step is rate design. The cost of service study for both utilities is in the report. I'm not going to get into the details of that. So we'll focus on some of the more high level things. I will say for water, every step of this process is to be approved by the state Public Service Commission. Next one. So we'll jump into the water utility and kind of what's going on with this. So as I mentioned, the Public Service Commission or PSC has to approve these rates. So they allow you to collect your operation and maintenance expenses. Taxes, the big portion of that is a payment in lieu of taxes to the village, to the general fund. Depreciation on utility finance plant, and that utility finance plant that excludes anything that's built by developers and contributed to the village. So it's just any assets that you pay for. And then lastly, a return on investment in, again, that utility finance plant. So the Public Service Commission looks at your plant and they apply a percentage. Currently that percentage is 6.2% that you're allowed to earn on your investment in rate base. The other thing I want to mention about this process is that they look only at anything that's going to happen next year. So they want to know how many customers do you think you're going to have next year? What do you think your expenses are going to be? And what capital projects will you be completing by the end of next year? They don't allow you to take into account any future stuff. They don't allow phased in rate increase. It's a 1 year look at where you're at. So that does place some limitations on what you can do with water versus sewer. If you go to the next slide. This is a side-by-side comparison of what those buckets that I just talked about looked like back in 2018 versus what we're estimating now. So operation and maintenance expenses have increased over the last 7 years. That's part of it. Taxes have not, because you keep that payment in lieu of taxes to the village at a level amount each year. But really the big story here is that you've been investing a lot in your utility. So your depreciation expense has gone up a lot, and your rate base, that is the amount of utility assets you have, went up from about 9.9 million in 2018 up to about 17.5 million through next year. So, and you've had a little bit of increase in sales over the last couple of years, so that kind of offsets it a little bit, but really the big story here is that you're catching up on all this investment you've done in infrastructure over the last 7 years. Next one. Just we take a little look at kind of what's been going on the last few years and then a 5 to 10 year projection for the future. So your water utility has had some negative cash flow in recent years. That drew your reserves down by about $1.5 million over the last 6 years. The reserves are still healthy. So when we look at what you should have, you're definitely still above that. So that 1.1 million on there, that's 3 months of operation and maintenance expenses, 1 year of debt service, and then some an amount for capital, unplanned capital equal to 1 year's depreciation expense. Just kind of a rule of thumb of what you need to maintain in your utility to account for changes in revenues and expenses, unplanned capital, things like that. Your debt burden is very low right now, and you've got really good debt coverage. So those are positives. But with the planned capital improvement program and borrowings, that's going to climb over the next few years. So that's what we're trying to plan for. And then as your operation maintenance expenses go up, as you take on new debt and so on, you want the reserves to be a little bit, to, you know, scale up in accordance with that. The next one. This just is a list of kind of what we have built in, like I said, for 2024 and 2025 capital improvements. Just some ongoing routine kind of stuff, main replacements, vehicle replacements and so on. And then if you look at the next one, looking forward in the CIP through 2029, you see there's a lot more main replacements of meters and things like that, but there's also several big projects coming up there in the kind of the 28, 29 timeframe. So that's what we were looking for, also to see what you might need to do to help, you know, cover those projects as well. So it shows some projections with the current recommended rate increase as well as estimated rate increases in 28 and 29 to cover those larger projects. What the purple line shows where the recommended reserves would be, and the blue dash line shows where they should be, or where we think they are actually going to be. Sorry. So we're looking at potentially, if you do those projects in 28 and 29, another maybe 21% rate increase, and another 15% after that. And again, that depends on a whole lot of assumptions that are built into the study, but just for planning purposes, that's what we're looking at. To continue to maintain a reasonable amount of reserves and fund the debt service and continue funding routine capital improvements from utility cash. So we go to the next one, just run through basically the rate structure. Somewhat of an increase in the fixed quarterly service charges that covers cost for billing meters and services. Go to the next one. This is for public fire protection charges, and these are cover the cost of hydrants, water storage, mains that are, you know, needed to be sized to get water in sufficient pressures and volumes for fire suppression, and then also for water actually used in fire suppression. So part of this is on the customer's bills and part of this gets charged to the village. So we're proposing no increase in the charge to the village, so it would all be on the meter charges to the customers. And then the schedule shows the increase in the volumetric rates, and I just want to explain this because we had a question about this earlier. So like if you look at commercial rates, for the first 30,000 gallons of water used per quarter, they pay $2.87 currently. For the next 470,000 gallons, they pay the $2.72. And then for any water used over 500,000 gallons, they pay $2.28. So we'll be looking at keeping that same structure in place. All right, so that covers the water. We want to move on to sewer next. Sewer is in a similar position in the sense that the reserve levels are very good, but we also are projecting that those will drop off a little bit over time with all the capital improvements that are in the CIP. The recommended reserves for 2025 would include about 1.2 million for an equipment replacement fund. So that's to replace parts, motors, and things that go out on various aspects of your treatment plant. Plus 3 months operating maintenance expense, plus a debt service reserve for your debt that's backed by revenues from the sewer utility, and then similarly, excuse me, unplanned capital reserve for anything that is unplanned besides the equipment replacement fund items. So continue on to the next. Again, here there's quite a lot planned for in the CIP, and just by comparison, when we did the sewer rate study back in 2017, the 5-year program had about $4 million worth of projects in it. So this is what we're seeing everywhere. You know, these things are costly both to replace mains, but also to do some of these larger projects. So we recommend a 4-year program of rate increases that would be reevaluated when you get to the point in time where you're going to do the biosolids project. So the next one, a little bit different picture here for sewer. The 6% that we're recommending this year is about 358,000 of additional revenues, and that initial rate increase is kind of catching up for increases in operation and maintenance expenses. And then the following series of rate increases that we recommend will help with gearing up towards that biosolids project, essentially. This is a similar graph to the one I showed you for the water utility. We're projecting reserves to drop down a little bit and then build up again as you institute a series of rate increases. And then once the debt for the biosolids project comes online, which we're estimating for 2029, then you'd be drawing down those reserves a little bit again. So that's why I need to look at it at that point in time. So just as a summary, next steps, so for the water utility, the next step would be to apply to the Public Service Commission for that rate increase, and then they would have probably about a 6-month time frame to review that, so you'd be looking at maybe those rates taking effect next June. On the sewer side, we recommended a schedule of 4 annual increases for starting next year, 6%, 6%, 5%, and then 5% overall. Evaluate that when you get to that point of doing the biosolids project.
A lot of information there. Any questions? Andy?
As far as the water goes, you have to apply to the Public Service Commission to raise that.
Yep.
Is a rate study what they're using to evaluate that, or is there a different criteria?
They their own criteria. They have a detailed application they have to fill out, and then they will ask a lot of questions and review everything to determine what the overall amount of revenue that you can collect would be. We have a copy of that application. We, worked through it all in the course of doing this process, so we're, pretty confident that we're within a pretty close range of what they would come back with as well. And then they will maybe do their own cost of service study and rate design, but typically if you have somebody submit that on the village's behalf to say this is what we would like, they usually defer to that. As far as that goes.
With it being that as 1 year, if they don't accept anything as a phased in, as we're doing with the sewer, you have to apply and it's a one and done
Correct.
thing.
The only exception to that is if you had a large project you were starting next year and completing in 2026, then they would allow you to take part of it next year and part of it the following year.
But they don't allow you to come back to them year after year after year after year to do a modified increase, where you're doing, instead of doing it all at once, you're doing 10% a year. They don't let you do something like that.
No, they have what they call a simplified rate case procedure, so, but there's limitations on it. For a utility of your size, you can't do that process once it's been 5 years since your last rates went into effect. And you also have to wait a full calendar year after you get new rates in place. And you have to meet financial criteria. So they would look and see, like, if we increased your rates by, 3% or 4% or whatever the amount is at the time, would your rate of return rise above the current benchmark? And if it would, then they won't give you that rate increase. So, but like I said, it's very limited. It's, 3%. 4%.
So practically, it would be like a 3 year, like
Yes.
the minimum would be about 3 years that they would allow you to come back over and over.
As an example, so your last rates went into effect in March of 2018. So you would not have been able to apply for that simplified inflationary increase until spring of 2020. Because 2019 would have been the full calendar year, and then you have to finish all of your books and turn in your annual report in, April of 2020, and then you could apply for that simplified rate increase. And then looking back at your annual reports for the last few years, I don't think you would have qualified in 2021. So it's a helpful process, but it's limited.
And their benchmark. That, are they inflationary adjusting that?
Yeah,
as
that's
time goes on? Or-
right. That's linked to prime rates.
All right, thank you.
Nothing.
Okay. Jim?
I understand your study here. It's a tough bullet for people to swallow when they're gonna get a $40 increase on their bill every quarter. And the 6% people come and say, I didn't get a 6% raise at work. So that's where I have some minor issues.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, step one here is to accept the water rate study prepared by Trilogy Consulting LLC and authorize them to submit 48.6% water rate increase application to the WPSC. I need a motion in a second.
I'll move to approve.
I will second it.
A motion in a second. Any further discussion on that? Favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Right. Katie, you got that? The ayes and the nays. Nays. Very good. Okay, step 2 here, accept the wastewater rate study. And approve an increase of 6% of the sanitary sewer rates on June 2025, 6% on June 2026, 5% on June 2027, 5% increase on June 2028, as advised by Trilogy Consulting. I'll need a motion and second.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion on the sewer rates? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's go on to Strand Associates.
Before the board this evening, coming out as recommended by the Board of Public Works, we've got a task order for engineering services related to upgrades to the 9th Avenue lift station and associated sanitary infrastructure in an amount not to exceed $181,500, contingent upon the change in verbiage in the contract. That being said, representatives from the Utility and Public Works are here this evening to get into greater details and ask questions about it, but this action item is coming forward with a recommendation for approval.
Very good. I'll look for a motion. So we can bring this to the table for discussion and possible action. Approved Strand Associates task order for engineering services related to upgrades on 9th Avenue lift station and associated sanitary infrastructure in the amount not to exceed $181,500. That's $181,500, contingent on the change in verbiage to the contract.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
A motion and second. Any questions, discussions on this? I know you guys did a lot of work on this. No discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Go to approval of an additional $1,633.26 to Green Bay Pipe and TV Green Bay for provision of additional sanitary sewer mainline heavy cleaning services with a total contract amount not $1,433.26. Any big discussion on that?
No, really, it is, as the action item notes, it is some additional work that came about during a previously awarded contract. There would be an additional $1,633 tacked on to the service contract with the total, not to exceed $30,433.
You get those roots out of those systems. That's a good thing. All right, I'll need a motion in a second.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
A motion in a second. Discussion, questions?
I just have a simple question.
Go ahead, Andy.
As far as the heavy cleaning goes, is that something significantly different than what the utility can do? Is it an equipment difference that, or what is it?
Yeah, we actually contract with a contractor that has a much higher powered, hose and system, and then they have the ability to go in and televise it right after. But theirs is way more powerful than ours.
Okay, thank you.
All right, further questions? We have a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Let's go to item 5, approved change order number 1 and the extra quantities for total project payment to Viking Construction not to exceed $311,759. And what's this for, Justin?
Certainly, this item number 5 and 6 under the report of Board of Public Works is actually, they are both related to the Port Washington Road Utility Extension Project. That said, this is a change order for some extra quantities to go above and beyond what the approved amount was, not to exceed $311,759, coming with a recommendation to approve.
So this came through Public Works. Anything of note here?
No, I just think it's signed back in 2019, so the conditions have changed out there a lot in that time frame, and that we did have a really significant low bid that we accepted from Vinton. So, this is some extra, but I think we are still underneath what our other bids were for the project, and well under budget.
Very good. Thank you, member. I'll look for a motion in a second.
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
Motion in a second. Any questions? I have a question. Andy?
So the items were severely underestimated in design. So you said that the estimate or the design work was old or design work, so is that part of the issue, or is it that the engineering firm didn't do enough due diligence?
Probably was not even. One of the things that happened is when we designed this, we planned on extending these utilities before Riverbend Meadows subdivision finished their phases. So it ended up happening the other way around. They finished their phases, we had to tie into their utilities, so there were just a number of changes of order of just the way things happened that obviously.
Okay, and what were the delays that Vinton had for completing the project?
I think it was just not being accurate in their initial schedule. I mean, they made schedule for the project and estimated their. There is, we all kind of saw it things, but I think they just severely underestimated their time frame for.
And was their downtime the reason that the inspection services cost went up?
Not their downtime, because we wouldn't have had an inspector out there. We don't have anyone on site if they're not working, but just the length of time it took them actively working.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and second on change order 1. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Nick.
Okay. All right, in a similar way, approve the total engineering inspection costs for the project not to exceed 20.
Nope, once again, related to the Port Road Utility Extension Project, and it was actually touched on with previous comment.
Very good. Motion and second, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion on this? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. All right, work design contract for 2025 street utility project for an Associates Milwaukee for a contract amount not to exceed $19,000. It's your Public Works, correct?
Got to draw the plans before we can bid it out, is the long and short of it. So this would be that design contract. And again, Director Thomas here to answer any specifics to it, but the long and short is we have to have the plans before we can go to bid.
Very good. Anything to add?
Well, because of a long-standing relationship with Kapoor, they've done a number of our design and our survey projects here in recent years. Budget not matching what we had in the capital improvement plan for the spring, where it's really late in the year to get this work going. So it's important to get them going right away and get all.
Okay, very good. Motion and second, please.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion on this? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Adopt a resolution accepting dedication of sanitary sewer, water main, storm sewer, curb and gutter sidewalk and roadway for the final plat of Riverbend Meadows.
Absolutely standard practice. Village has to formally accept public infrastructure or infrastructure that will become public infrastructure by way of resolution, and that sets forth the items to be accepted and dedicated within the final plat of Riverbend Meadows Phase 3.
Very good. All set over there. Looks good. All right, came through Public Works. We're all good. All right. Motion and second.
I'll make the motion.
Sorry, it's a resolution. It needs to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Need an offer. Motion and second.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Offer motion and second. Any discussion on this? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Finally, approve updated bridge, street dam inspection, operation and maintenance plan and emergency action plan.
State required action by the village in order for us to file these documents and reports in accord with their requirements. All of them were vetted at Board of Public Works. Once again, I'll put Director Thomas on the spot for being able to answer any specific questions about it. However, all of this work has been completed and it's a matter of formal approval by the village prior to filing.
Good. I think the minutes were Public Works were pretty specific on what's going on with it.
No major changes to either of these plans, really just updating contact information down to the end of
Very good. A motion and second, please.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thanks for keeping us busy tonight, Amber. All right, let's go to Board of Public Safety Committee.
Just in accord with village policy, looking to accept a donation received from village resident Judith Schenker to the Grafton Police Department. Must be formally accepted by the village board in accord with policy.
Very good. Motion and second, please.
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
All right, motion and second. Any questions on the $100 donation?
I'll just make a comment that this was, in part of the police department going to the senior committee, to talk about, the upcoming election when they're paying nice.
Thank you for making that generous offer. We have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Jesse, how about a village administrator's report?
Absolutely. First of all, I would like to start with a very positive report on behalf of the clerk's office. We received word that there will not be a recount for the Senate race between Ms. Baldwin and Mr. Hovde. What that would have entailed because statistically by law, it was within limits to request a recount.
Oh, I was gonna say, officially, a recount can still be called, but US Senate race, he has conceded, and the presidential race has conceded as well. But they still may call for a recount if wanted, they would have to pay for it.
As I was all ready to brag on your behalf. Well, either way, that's a very positive note because a recount would require our clerk and deputy clerk to report to Ozaukee County to assist with the recount. And frankly, it is long hours and straight through, regardless of holiday, weekend, what have you, in order to complete a recount. So we are hopeful that the concessions hold and no recount is carried out because frankly, we wouldn't have a clerk's office for the better part of a week, week and a half, possibly up to 2 weeks with the recount, as they are bound to assist with the recount at the county offices. So hopefully the concessions hold only on behalf, not a political statement, but on behalf of a staffing statement. So that said, that is in play for us. Park and Rec Department is actually in the process of working with their new registration software provider on a transfer of data. This will look to get them up and running first quarter of next year with their new registration software, which is looking to be a much more user-friendly software package and thus helping them overall with their operations. And last but not least, our finance department is prepping for our preliminary audit work in December. This preliminary audit work really does a deep dive into our adopted financial policies. Now, early next year, when they get into the formal audit, that's when they start getting into the numbers and the dollars and cents and our accounting practices and how various items are booked. But the preliminary audit work actually begins in December with, as I mentioned, the review of our policies and then moves into the accounting structure itself early next year. So the finance department basically switches gears from assisting with budget creation into audit mode. So they are quite busy, but those are the items I have to report this evening.
Round and round, Paul. Where she stops, nobody knows. So. Great, thanks, Paul. Approval of operators license here. It looks like we have two folks here who applied for licenses approved by the chief. Look for a motion to approve the issuance of operator's license as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
A motion and second. Any discussion on this? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. We'll go over to the report of bills. I didn't see any back and forth today. Questions? All right, so we'll look for a motion and second on village expenditures to approve of $760,713.11.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion on payment of bills? All right, we have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.